Welcome and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So glad to see so many faces.
Good morning.
Can I ask everyone to put your computer on mute? Thanks. Well, it's my pleasure to welcome everyone today to our Family Empowerment Month, the kickoff to our Family Empowerment Month. As many of you know, last year, our Family Empowerment Day changed from a day to a week-long set of town halls with different commissioners and legislators and advocates, family and youth advocates, who had an opportunity to have real dialogue and on the various issues that we at Families Together all work on. And so what was really wonderful about that was it gave the commissioners and the legislators an opportunity to really hear from families who had organized and agreed to be the voice of families and young people. And it gave young people and families the voice, the opportunity to be heard in a way that was not able to be done in when we had the live Family Empowerment Day in person. And there were a lot fewer buses this time. So it makes for accessibility for many more people to join us from their living rooms or their offices or wherever. So we're so thrilled to have all of you here to join us today to do the kickoff. Last year, the Family Empowerment Week was such a success that we decided to do Family Empowerment Month this year so that we could spread it out and make sure that legislators, commissioners, and our members could all have an opportunity to join, at least for some, if not all, of our town halls, and for today, our kickoff day. So happy February, happy Family Empowerment Month. And we are going to, as you'll see in the agenda, which is the next slide, thanks. This is what today's schedule will look like. We will be awarding our Champion for Families and Youth Award, and then we'll have an overview of our policies and priorities with Brad. And then our town hall preparation will go into breakout sessions where we have leaders for each of the town halls that will help guide the members who decide to join that town hall and want to help craft some questions that we can ask legislators and commissioners. So I didn't say who I was, I'm sorry. I'm Paige Pierce, I'm the CEO of Families Together. And here's the schedule of events for Family Empowerment Month. This week we have tomorrow, the Healthy Minds, Healthy Kids Rally, which is a group that we're a part of that works on children's behavioral health. It's a campaign specifically to focus on shoring up and improving the children's mental health delivery system in New York State. And we, along with many other colleagues, advocates, are hosting a rally, a virtual rally tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Then our first town hall for Families Together's Family Empowerment Month is the Addiction and Recovery Town Hall, which is tomorrow afternoon at 2:30. And we'll have the commissioner from OASIS and the chairs of the alcohol and substance abuse committees in both the Senate and the Assembly. On Thursday, we have the mental health town hall with at 1:30 in the afternoon. And that's with our OMH commissioner and the chairs in the Assembly and Senate of the mental hygiene committees. On Friday, the child welfare town hall at 11 o'clock and our youth justice town hall at 1 o'clock. And you can see that Sheila Poole, the commissioner for OCFS, will be doing double duty that day for us because both of those topics are under her agency, along with Assembly and Senate chairs in both the child welfare and child and juvenile justice arenas. And then on Friday, February 11th, also the other one, Friday, February 11th was the child welfare and youth justice. Then Friday, February 18th, the following week, is the developmental disabilities town hall. with our new commissioner at OPWDD and the chairs in the Assembly and Senate for developmental disabilities. And then on Friday, the 18th, also at 3 o'clock in the afternoon is our education town hall with the commissioner from state ed and a senator from the senator who's the chair of the education committee. So it's a packed month, but you know, I was saying to Brad yesterday that so many of our colleagues
not an easy
who,
person to follow.
please make sure you're
I muted you, Paige.
Am I good? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thanks. So, you know, many advocacy organizations that we work with works on singular issues, whether it's mental health or substance abuse or child welfare, youth justice, education, developmental disabilities. And as you can see from the schedule for the month of February, we obviously cross many, many systems and are involved in many systems, which means that we have the opportunity to have relationships with all of those different commissioners and all of those different legislators. It also means that we have to spread the love. We have to really get our message out there that's specific to these topics to all of these different people. And fortunately, or not, we have the experience in many of these systems. So we can speak from the heart and we can speak from our lived experience to be able to help legislators and commissioners be able to do their jobs better by having the input from us. So without further ado, our first thing on the agenda is to recognize our first Champion for Families and Youth Award. And we came up with this title because we wanted to recognize Andrea Smith, who's been the president and CEO of the New York State Coalition for Children's Behavioral Health for many, many years, and has been a partner and ally with us for all of those years. And many of you saw when you registered for today, the bio and the description that we wrote about why we wanted to recognize Andrea. But I just want to tell you, because I've had the most contact out of everybody at Families Together with Andrea over the past 20 years, because our organizations work so closely together, and because she is the CEO and I'm the CEO, and with all of the other provider organizations that we work with, there's a definite difference between provider versus family advocate organization. And with the coalition, that has not been the case. And it has primarily been because of the leadership of Andrea. Andrea has always not only encouraged her board members and her members, who are all providers of children's behavioral health services, to include family and youth voice in everything that they do. But she also does that with us. She doesn't go to meetings in the legislature or even with state agencies like OMH without inviting me or inviting family and youth representatives, because she understands the value of our voice and our lived experience. What we bring to the table is something that hired guns can't bring to the table. As knowledgeable as somebody like Andrea is, they need our authentic voice to be able to illustrate the actual issues that she so clearly articulates to them. And we can be the voice and face that helps back her up on that. So, over the years, we've had dozens of policy issues that we've worked on with Andrea and with the New York State Coalition. And this year we wanted to, every year in the last several years, we've been doing our empowerment days together so that we can merge our policy agenda. And this year, we are wanting to make sure that everything that we're aligned in every way. We've always been philosophically aligned, but we want to go together to the legislature to say, listen, this is providers and family members and young people who together are carrying the exact same message to you. So there's no confusion. There's no, I'm not sure whether or not the families agree with what the providers are saying or whether the providers agree with what the families are saying, we're coming in hand, and that makes a huge difference in our how we're received and how policies will get shaped based on that partnership. And so it's with that Families Together board and staff recognize Andrea Smith, President and CEO of New York State Coalition of Children's Behavioral Health, as our first champion of families and youth. Andrea?
Well, thank you, Paige, and everyone in your organization who thought it was a good idea to give me the floor for a few minutes. I am really so very humbled to accept this award from this particular organization. I say it often, but I believe it to be true. You are the everyday heroes in the children's mental health system, and you all are the first responders to your child's needs and to the needs of your peers. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for appreciating my small part in trying to make life a little easier for the families facing the very daunting mental health service system in New York. And I want to just briefly share some of my thoughts about my personal history with family empowerment. First, I have to thank the family peer advocates who I have come to know and who have been sources of so much information for me over the years. And I am going to say names, and I apologize if I miss anyone, but each of these people have truly helped me. Euphemia, Deborah, Trish, Ruth, Joan, Sue, Ann, Barb, Nan, Daphne, Kim, Susan, Cheryl, Kathy, and Steve. And I can feel your halos, each of you a saving grace, and you have each taught me a lot. So it has been a bumpy road of developing awareness for me, but with a woke board and the patience of family peers, I know that children need their families and a community that accepts them, and that families too, along with continuous respite and support, just as long as you believe you need it, and not according to some metrics on a treatment plan, need the same thing, just acceptance and support and respite every once in a while. And so today I just want to reinforce that as the head of an organization that does represent the providers, just as Paige was saying, we intend to do more than that. The New York State Coalition for Children's Behavioral Health has worked hard to incorporate the family voice into the work of strengthening our service array. And last year we initiated a diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging effort, working hard to incorporate the equity lens into our work as well. Which is very important today on the first day of Black History Month, I believe. So the coalition's commitment to evolving and improving isn't just about my leadership, but an informed board of directors that includes three very valuable family representatives. And so I'll close with a quote from Ray Shimmer, a former board chair of the New York State Coalition, who wrote this in 2014. So the fight continues. We hope to see a day when children and families will have access to a range of mental health care equal to what is available in physical health care. That is a day when a child afflicted with any mental health problem will be treated as quickly as a child with a broken bone or a fever. And on that day, parents' concerns for their children's mental health will be addressed by a wide array of services that are readily available. And on that day, mothers and fathers won't need to worry about getting enough care right away. On that day, they won't be confused about where the help is or how to get it. So thank you very much, and know that if you need me, call me.
Thank you, Andrea. And I have Andrea's cell phone number on speed dial, so I will be calling her, especially during this session. You know, during legislative session, we spend a lot of time together, and she works very closely with our lobbyist, Karen Carreau, and the two of them are a force in the Capitol. Thank you so much, Andrea, and congratulations. Our next agenda item is for me to introduce Kim Kaiser, who is our new Director of DEI. And Kim is going to talk a little bit about Black History Month, and then also do an activity on What's Your Why. Kim?
Thanks, Paige. Congratulations, Andrea. I want to say, first of all, welcome everybody. For all of you that have that camera on, wave back. Okay. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're so happy to see all of you here, all of your beautiful faces. Thank you so much. And like Paige said, my name is Kim Kaiser. I'm the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at Families Together in New York State. And I want to just recognize, I want us all to recognize and acknowledge that February 1st, today is the first day of Black History Month. And Barack Obama said the change won't come if we wait for some other person, some other time, because we're the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. And everybody here today knows that. That's why you do this work. So Black History Month is a celebration of all African Americans in this country and our contribution to American history. Yes, African American history is American history. We all need to acknowledge that. Every month of the year, however, we should be working to break down barriers for all minorities. And it starts with us by building awareness of the disparities within the Black community and within all marginalized communities, by doing our part to advocate to create real change, both within ourselves and within the individuals and families that we serve. We have to work to end the stigma and break down the barriers and create equitable access to all services, systems, and supports in all communities. Martin Luther King Jr. said that if you can't fly, then you run, and if you can't run, then you walk. And if you can't walk, then you crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Families Together is moving forward. We're dedicated to creating inroads to services, empowerment, and hope for the Black community and for all communities with systems involvement. So join us today in acknowledging and recognizing Black History Month. Do some research, Google, learn about the contributions that the Black community has made to behavioral health, to all systems, under every umbrella within our town halls for this wonderful event. With that, on that note, what I'd like to do now is talk about what is your why. We all have a why, because this isn't work that we're going to say, we do this because we think we're going to get rich. Our why is much deeper than that. Our why goes down into our soul, into our hearts, because that is the work that we do. So for me, I'm the team leader of the Developmental Disabilities Town Hall. And for me, my why is because I want to broaden the door, broaden the access, and improve the services for my community, for my children, and for all communities. I do this because I am concerned about the future. I'm concerned about, yes, a child with a broken leg, a child facing a mental health crisis. We need to meet those needs as immediate as possible on an equal and equitable level, because children and families are the future. They are the backbones of all communities, of all civilizations. So therefore, we need to treat, we need to be restorative, and we need to uplift, empower, and again, instill hope into all communities. That is my why. And with all of our town halls and our team leaders, I'm going to ask you to unmute, to show your face. And I'm going to start with the team leader for addiction and recovery to let us know your why.
Hi, everyone. My name is Courtney Lavelle, and my why is for my children. Should they struggle with substance use the way I once did as a child, I want to make sure that our systems can catch them and help them and uplift them in a way that wasn't available to me. So that's my why.
Thank you, Courtney. And I want to remind all of you, drop your why in the chat, share with everybody. Next, I want to focus on the mental health town hall. Who's the team leader for that? And share your why.
That would be I, Mona Ganem. I'm the team leader for the mental health town hall. And my why is because mental health should not be treated any differently than physical health.
That's a beautiful why. And next, child welfare team leader.
Hi, my name is Daphne Brown, and my why is to make sure that parents are educated and empowered to raise safe and healthy children.
Thanks, Daphne. And next, youth justice.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Anthony Rice. My why is to be the someone that looks like me, that I always hoped for, to help bring hope to those who look like me.
That one gets some snaps, Charles. Thank you. And last but not least, education.
Hi, I'm Susan Berger, and I'm the team leader for education. And my why is so no other parent or family member has to go through the trials and tribulations to get services that I had to go through for my child.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Susan, and thank you everybody who dropped their why in the chat. Thank you very much. And again, welcome, enjoy, be informed. And at that note, I'm going to kick it over to our moderators. Brad?
Brad, do you want me to go for a sec?
Yes, please.
So as all of you who have attended our Family Empowerment Day know, and as if you attended the town halls during Family Empowerment Week last year, you know that there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to get to the point where we can have these meetings with legislators and commissioners to tell them what our priorities are. We've gathered the information from our families and young people about what are our priorities as parents and young people. What do we want to see changed in Albany that impacts our families? And a lot of the work that goes into that is done by our policy department. And Brad Hansen is the director of our public policy department. And Zach Kilmer is the program coordinator for the public policy department. And the two of them are responsible not only for all of the success of today and this month, the events, but also for collaborating and coordinating with families and young people across the state to develop this policy agenda that talks about, you know, what do we want to see change here in Albany and what are our priorities? And so Brad's going to go over that right now, our public policy priorities for the year.
Thanks, Paige. Bear with me while I get the my slide presentation up. Okay. So first, just want to share, you know, my why is all of your whys. I want, you know, my purpose here and what I see as the driving reason, what gets me up in the morning and do this work is making sure that all the whys that I see in this chat are realized. And, you know, thinking about Andrea and what she said and Ray Shemmer, you know, that is a vision, and the vision and everything you guys are putting out there. I want to see that too. And that's what this policy priority you know, the policy priorities we put out every year, that's what we're trying to pull off. You know, it's feedback from all of our members, from all the families and young people we interface with day in, day out throughout the year. And it culminates into an agenda that we hope will really change what it feels like to be a New Yorker, to be a young person growing up, to be a family member, raising their child, feel supported and connection. We know that that is what we need. That is what we need. And so we have to make sure state dollars and resources go towards that end. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So first, I want to share a little bit, you know, we got to get into the details of the political landscape. As you all know, we have a new governor. The reign of the old one is over, and we have a brand new one. And you know, we also have a new lieutenant governor, Brian Benjamin. So no longer is there 3 men in the room. There is quite literally 2 women in the room and 1 man. And that's a big, you know, that's a big deal. We're quoting Governor Hochul in her State of the State. But the reality is there are still 3 major leaders in the Senate, the Assembly, and the governorship who are going to make a lot of big decisions around resources that the state allocates. And we're in a lot of ways a minor player in that. So we really have to be a loud player in that and make our voices heard. Some other things that we're operating in, we have Democrats have a super majority in all facets of government in New York State, the state, the Assembly, the Senate, and the executive. New this year, if you've been to Family Empowerment Month or just lived in New York in the past 10 years, you know, very often we're looking at budget cuts. We're looking at a budget outlook where tax revenues were high enough, or there's some other external factor resulting in our needed services, our necessary resources and supports potentially being on the chopping block and us being on the defensive. This year is such a different year, and I got to say, I think we all deserve this relief. But you know, the budget outlook is good. We finally have the state coffers are a little filled. We have some money. We have federal relief that came in during the Trump administration and the Biden administration. And so the state is actually in a position to make investments. And so we should all breathe a sigh of relief there. That's wonderful news, but we have to make sure that we have to really seize this moment. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit with the agenda. Because why? We are in a youth mental health crisis, a youth mental health emergency. We felt this way before the pandemic. Now, all the outstanding issues and deficiencies, structural issues in our service delivery system are exasperated. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can look to the US Surgeon General. You can look to the American Academy of Pediatrics. They're calling this what it is, a youth mental health emergency. It was true before COVID. It's true now. It's even more true now. We're also facing an ongoing addiction pandemic that didn't just go away, and in fact, it got more stark and more concerning, more dire. We're also facing widespread racial and economic inequality. That was true before COVID. Now it's worse, and now the ramifications of it more clear. We have to do more. We're in the wake of George Floyd. There was a major call for Black Lives Matter. We have to make sure that Black families matter. You know, and just as we think we're out, new COVID variants are coming in. And that has stalled recovery. We're also facing a whole new attitude towards work, and you know, if you've heard the term, the Great Net Resignation, that is a very important dynamic as we're facing workforce shortages for people that serve families and children. We need to rise to the occasion as a state and actually make investments in our workforce so that our families and young people get the supports they need. They can't get therapy if there's no therapists in the field. And just to end on a positive in terms of social currents, you know, we talk about this a lot, you know, resiliency in the children's world, and we're living it. We're seeing so much resiliency in the face of just widespread destabilization. And, you know, as great as that is, and, you know, inspiring as it is to see people pushing through all this adversity, we need to be clear that, you know, you can't rely on the strength of an individual, of families, of communities for too long. You know, if they're under sustained amounts of trauma and disruption, you know, that takes its toll. And so we need investments in our communities now. So that's a big part of what we'll be pushing for this year, because austerity connects everything. Families in the systems that serve us have been suffering from chronic underinvestment for decades. Every single system is impacted: mental health, addiction, education, developmental disabilities, and child welfare. So many of us have connection to both of those things. For decades, well before COVID, that was the case. They were underinvested in and operating on shoestring budgets to serve the great need that we know is out there. And beyond that, we know that when there's rising costs that are constant, even flat funding, like it is for the child welfare system this year, that means cuts. Essentially, if you're making do with less and you have even more need, that is essentially a cut. And so we can't rest on our laurels. And lastly, with the convergence of multiple crises, anything short of bold investments in resources and services is unconscionable. So take that with you into your meetings, into conversations with legislators and commissioners at your local level. We need investments desperately. So I'll pause there for a moment take a sip of water, and let's dive into the actual issues. So much of this is talking about trying to address the children's behavioral health crisis. Our main point for the past decade is that rates for actually treating and supporting young people are desperately disconnected from what it actually requires to offer that service. The cost of hiring and maintaining staff who are good, who want to be there, who aren't overburdened and stressed, who are making minimum wage in some cases. We need to actually address the rates that agencies receive for delivering those services. So in a phrase, rate reform equals workforce. And so we're calling for massive investments and increased rates and reimbursement for children's behavioral health services. We want to make permanent some of these great investments that we've seen, really largely due to the fact that we got federal relief to the state for things like children and family treatment support services. That's family peer support and youth peer support, and home and community-based services. We want to see those things become permanent. There is existing funding streams for general support for family peer support and youth peer support services called the 1650 to locality funding. We want to make sure that family peer support and youth peer support, even though Medicaid is a really crucial funding stream for that, you know, we really want to make sure that we're following the family, not following the money. And so our youth peer support and family peer support programs desperately need general funding to go wherever the family needs us to be there with them. Lastly, on this slide, we want to authorize the 5.4 cost of living adjustment for providers. And we want to make sure that that includes a lot of the children's services that often get left out of that. Good news is that that is in the budget this year. And so we're going to be pushing hard to make sure that it stays in the budget in future years. So next up, you know, that's a lot about what rate reform is, but we're also talking about what about access? What about access for families who aren't on Medicaid, for instance? Are they able to get these really crucial mental health supports that are available to families that are on Medicaid? Well, for families that can't afford private insurance, they have something called Child Health Plus. We want to make sure that children and family treatment and support services are available for those families. And so that is also included in the governor's budget, and we'll be supporting that. We want to amend telehealth reforms to make sure that there's parity between telehealth or in-person, by phone, because we know that family choice matters. And we have to make sure that the funding reflects that. So we can't have disparate rates between in-person or over the phone or video. We know that that will have a bad incentive to actually cut down on families' choice. And that's a very crucial thing that we've learned from COVID. We need to fully fund implementation of the 988 crisis line. That was a big thing that was passed in the federal level, and the state has embraced it. But we needed to make sure that that isn't just a new 911, but it's actually backed by services and resources. And the governor's budget has included some funding for that increases from this year, I think it's 30 million, to next year, something around 60 million. So that is a big positive development. And of course, we support that. In terms of addiction and recovery, that's the addiction side of behavioral health. We really want to make sure that a youth clubhouse, a safe, drug-free place for young people to grow and thrive and just be kids, is available. In places where it exists, we know that it helps, but there's only so many, and there's certainly not one in every county. And so we want to create a permanent funding stream that actually achieves that. And lastly, in light of Black History Month, we want to support and create a Black youth suicide prevention task force to reverse troubling trends that we're seeing in Black youth suicide in New York. And there was a bill for that supported by Samuel Brook, who will be on the town halls later this week. Very related to all of these is what's happening in schools. And we really want to end the school to prison pipeline and ensure that schools are safe and in supportive environments for all students. Luckily, there's some great funding that's been included in Governor Hochul's executive budget proposal. One is for $50 million for high need schools to hire mental health professionals, expand school-based mental health services and other related programming. That's going to be for the next 2 years, $50 million. We support that. There's also other more broad initiatives around school climate and alternatives to discipline, really bringing in restorative practices and other school-based mental health programming. We support that as well. Something not in the budget we do want to see is passing of the solutions, not suspensions bill, so we can end reliance on suspensions as the default way to discipline students, hold them accountable. We really need restorative approaches. We need collaboration between educators and families. And this bill would promote that. Two last pieces on the school side, we need to continue supporting the School Mental Health Resource Training Center run by the Hannies, the Mental Health Association in New York State, and we need to develop multiple pathways to a high school diploma beyond high stakes testing. So we know that does not serve or reflect true education, and so we really need to make sure that we phase that out. New York is one of the few states that actually requires Regents diplomas or something like it. So changing gears here, we talked a lot about the behavioral health crisis. There's a different crisis happening among family, especially poor families and families of color, and that is the continued sort of treatment of an addressment of poverty as neglect and abuse in the child welfare system, the child protective system. There's hundreds of thousands of families in New York who are being sucked into this system when they have real needs that they need, often are reflected by poverty, but they need support. And instead, we often give them a CPS call, and we just know that doesn't actually help families. And so part of what we want to do is pass the Children and Families Reinvestment Act. That would create a funding stream dedicated to primary prevention. That means no strings attached prevention. You don't need to have a CPS call to get support. They're not going to stand in the way of just people getting things they need, like housing support, education about nursing and how to raise young children. We also want to create, we want to help support the existing prevention continuum. We also want to, and this is a big one, establish universal childcare for all New Yorkers. How many people have been struggling or unable to rejoin the workforce as a result of dealing with extremely unaffordable childcare in New York? This is something that Families Together did not necessarily lean in on or weigh in on before. We are now. We really think universal childcare that is affordable is a key part of creating stable families. Beyond that, we want to see, just like the mental health system has, a deep investment from the child welfare to adopt family peer advocates and youth peer advocates into the child welfare system. We truly believe that peer support is extremely valuable to someone who's navigating family core child protective services. And so this is a key intervention that we want to see invested in statewide. Another key part is getting parental legal representation as early as possible and having a broad array of people behind you, like parent advocates and social workers, not just attorneys, to make sure that parents are getting the legal support and understanding their rights as they navigate this very complicated system. Speaking of knowing your rights, we also are supporting a bill that would create a sort of Miranda Bill of Rights, so that when CPS investigations are opened, the CPS worker has to tell the parents, notify them of rights as they proceed. It's a key piece, as a lot of families operate in a sort of asymmetry of information and power. And so we really want to work towards balancing that. And similarly, we want to pass an anti-harassment and reporting bill that ends anonymous and retaliatory CPS calls. That simply means that if you're going to call on a family, you have to at least give the hotline your name. Doesn't mean that name's going to be released later, but you can't be anonymous. And we've seen that used in ways that really hurt families, and in many cases, the calls are unsubstantiated later. So all that does is put families under a microscope and kind of increase surveillance, and we don't want to see that. Shifting gears in the child welfare system, we really want to prioritize families over facilities. We don't want to see in New York congregate care and group home being the primary place that young people go if they're going to enter the foster care system. So we've created things like the Pass Families we want to create the Families Over Facilities Act that would limit congregate care for children under 13 and reinvest that money, in some cases $800 a day per child, towards actually supporting kinship homes and foster homes. We also want to inject accountability into the system, for the system, not just on the parents and the young people. And so we want to create an independent office of the child welfare advocate, to really, have a public reporting requirement to field complaints from families and young people, and be a dose of transparency and sunlight into a very opaque system that often operates with its own set of rules. We want to create a unified statewide kinship navigator service that consolidates all these local programs that exist sort of unevenly across the state and make one big system. So we support the kinship navigator as they push for that. And they also want to expand legal services for kinship families. And lastly, we need to treat kinship guardianship assistance, which is a permanency option for relatives, the same way that we treat adoption. So it's an open-ended funding stream. It's not coming out of a block grant where counties are forced to choose, do we support permanency or do we support foster care? There really shouldn't be a difference in how these two permanency options are treated. Moving on, and this is the last slide, is all about youth justice. And Families Together was a big proponent and advocate for the Raise the Age legislation that was passed 3 or 4 years ago now. And that is widely held as a success. We saw less young people getting arrested. We saw less young people no young people going to adult jails and prisons, and crime did drop for a great deal of time. So we want to defend those things. We want to defend Raise the Age. We also passed a raising the lower age so that 7-year-olds wouldn't be prosecuted in the juvenile justice system. The end of last year. We need to protect that. We also need to protect record sealing so people can petition later. That's something else we passed last year. We got to make sure that stays, but at the same time, we can't just sit back and be on the defensive. We want to advance new bills like the Youth Justice and Opportunities Act that would expand the youthful offender status, which is a record sealing option for young people up to age 25, because brains of young people are not fully developed till the age of 25. And so we want our law to reflect that. We want to invest in community resilience and really invest in services and resources that are going to make it so youth prisons are obsolete and we don't need them anymore. So we want to invest first and make sure that we're in a place where youth prisons can be closed. We also want to pass a right to remain silent bill so that young people have more rights and have their parent or an attorney available when they are under interrogation. And interrogation cannot proceed without that. And we also want to invest and react to some of the gun violence issues that we're seeing and rising in response to COVID. And so we need a public health approach to that issue. All right, I'll take a breath. We have gotten through the policy priorities. We're now ready to start going into breakout sessions. And so your team leaders are going to be waiting on the other side. We have Zach, who will be breaking us up into smaller groups and you'll help get our ambassadors ready to ask questions at the town hall. This should take less than 40 minutes. Sometimes it takes less time. So Zach, based on your registration, is going to be sending you to different rooms. Let him know if you don't want to go to the room you got to, or if you'd like to switch. So that's it. Thank you everyone for joining us today. It's been an amazing day. I'm especially inspired by Ken and Paige and Andrea and all the comments you guys shared about what's your why. So let's do this. Zach.
Thank you so much, Brad. I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. And after your breakout sessions, be ready to join the town halls that you've signed up for, and keep moving forward together. We won't be back together as a group, right, Brad? Today?
Right.
So I just want to take an opportunity to say thank you to Brad and to Zach. I'm both exhausted and exhilarated in hearing all of the policy agenda items that Brad just went over. It's so much, and I'm so impressed and proud. And just want to say thank you again to Brad for all of the work you've done to develop this, and to everybody that's contributed to it. And really excited and invigorated to get into these breakout sessions so we can prepare for our town halls with leaders. Thanks, everybody, for joining us.